Hello and welcome to As We May Think. In the last video, well, to be honest, I ran a little long, and that was because I found myself talking about so much stuff. I talked about unit testing, and I used unit testing to help me write an API. And that API utilized multiple different embedded databases and one non-embedded database, MongoDB, to implement an authentication system. And then I digressed onto bcrypt as I used it in the authentication system. So there was a lot of stuff going on there, especially as I actually dug into NeDB and started showing how I used it. Hopefully this episode is going to be way shorter, because really all I want to talk about today is MongoDB and a little bit more about this experiment to try writing the exact same thing with both NeDB and MongoDB and seeing how well my idea of having written code for NeDB and then switching it to MongoDB actually went. So when we left off, we had been talking quite a bit about NeDB, and I briefly by accident, I actually ran the MongoDB version of the tests. So I had actually, when I first started up, I had this wired to the MongoDB version, and so you saw that actually run. That's when I got a failure, because I still had in my MongoDB instance some of the users from the unit test were there, and the unit test doesn't automatically clear those users out. So let me actually jump back, and I'm going to run it again. I've cleared out the database, so cross your fingers, and npm test should work right now. And in this case, it's going to run against MongoDB. Yep, and all 5 passed. Okay, that is me showing you that the MongoDB version, with only the minor differences that you saw from the NeDB version, and here they are, works. So here is the MongoDB version of things. It uses a MongoDB client. It pulls a URL out of this variables.inf file that I actually got from another site, which I'm going to show you in a minute. I'm using MongoDB has a cloud platform called Atlas, where they will let you set up for free a small database. Not a huge one, but it's fairly sophisticated because it's clustered. There's like 3 nodes, and it's clustered and backed up. I think it's backed up. I don't know. It's for free. It doesn't cost anything, and it works reasonably well. It would also give you a platform you could grow on if you wanted to spend a few dollars every month, if you actually had a side project that did well. And that's what this is kind of all about, is me suggesting here's a really fast solution that you can embed in your app, and then you can grow to something that's more sophisticated as you actually need it. So as you can see here, there's really not a lot of difference from what you saw before. The setup is different, sure, and the destroy is different. And this isn't a complete destroy because all it does is close. It doesn't try to get rid of all those example clients. Also, it always uses the same collection name. So right now the tests would run against the same collection that I use for regular users. What I need to do is pass in the name of the collection here, kind of like what I did for NeDB, and then have that be a temporary name. And then when I'm done, that temporary one, this destroy will get called, and it'll clear all that out. That would actually make the test work better, and you'll probably see that in a version of this that I check in all likelihood, because that's a to-do for me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to add a to-do for that very thing. Let's see. Sorry. To-do has in collection name. And add one more here. And it's okay to do this because normally in your code you would never call destroy, just the unit tests call destroy. So with that done, I can come back and clean this up a little bit, and you'll have a good set of unit tests that work against NeDB and work against MongoDB, and you really just have to switch the actual library you're using. All of the rest of the behavior, the sign up and the login, all comes from the authentication, and it's actually shared. It's exactly the same for NeDB and MongoDB. That works. So let me digress real quick, and I want to talk about how well this idea worked. Because I thought it was a really clever one. I thought, okay, I'll write some code with NeDB, and then I'll show how easy that is to migrate to MongoDB, and show how that gives you an easy migration path. And the truth of the matter is, it's sort of true. The problem is, as I pointed out in the last video, NeDB hasn't gotten any love in years now. And as a result, it and MongoDB have actually drifted pretty far apart. If you look at MongoDB these days, the truth of the matter is that MongoDB directly supports promises these days. There's a promises version of almost all those calls that return a promise directly. They're easier to use. You can use them with async and await, which is an ES6 feature that makes promises and asynchronous code easier to work with. I haven't done a talk about async and await yet, but at some point, doubtless I will. If you need one, there are some good ones out there, I'm sure. So do search for those. But please don't abandon my channel. It's a good one. I'm trying hard. Anyway, MongoDB has improved enormously over time, and there's really some divergence of what NeDB looks like versus what MongoDB looks like. And that causes things like what you see here, where it says collection.insert is deprecated. And that's because in my authentication JS code, I had to use insert to add a new user when they do a sign-up. But that's not the way MongoDB does things anymore. They use not insert, but insert one or insert many. There are different calls that they've got, and they've kind of split that stuff all apart. But I had to use insert because that was the only one that was supported by both MongoDB and by NeDB. The problem is, of course, that MongoDB just supports it as a fallback. They're trying to push you to the new stuff, and they issue a warning message every time you use the old version. So yes, you could write something for NeDB, and then later come along, rewrite it just a little bit for MongoDB, but I'm not sure that it's fantastic. So just to try out something different, NeDB is not the only database that tries to look like MongoDB. There's another one here called Tingo, and Tingo is more recent. It's gotten love in the last couple of years, and in fact, some of it's as recently as the last 8 months, as you can see here. It's obviously not as popular as NeDB is, but it is still getting work, and it conforms to version 1.4 of the MongoDB API. And in fact, people have started filling in parts of the 2 and greater version as well. So I tried just seeing what that was like and swapping it out. And that worked just fine too. Here is Tingo. And this might actually be a better choice. I haven't used it enough to know whether this is a better choice than NeDB or not. The fact that it's a more active and more recently active API, or I guess I should say library, suggests to me that it might be worth looking at more. It seems like it supports the cursor and some other things a little closer to the current MongoDB than what NeDB does. As you can see, again, the setup was not significantly hugely different from the MongoDB or the NeDB versions of things. It just sets it up. Every time you create a collection with it actually stores it into this empty into a directory somewhere, and I've put a placeholder file here so it would be kept by GitHub, not by GitHub, by Git, and be recreated for you. You can actually switch, again, the tests. If we go to this here, we can actually swap out one more time. TingoDB, and then come down here and run npm test again. And as you can see, that one passes just as well as the NeDB and the MongoDB versions, despite the fact that it's only different in about, I don't know, 10 or 15 lines. So in a sense, the idea worked, and in a sense, it didn't work, because I think that there's quite a bit of difference between MongoDB and NeDB. TingoDB may actually be closer, and so require less work. But ignore all of that. I think it's worth your knowing MongoDB. I think it's a good thing for you to know. It's a good database that works well with JavaScript. So I'm going to put, a suggestion that, hey, you ought to use this. It works well for me, and I think it'll work well for you. And they work hard to try and offer you some stuff. So this is MongoDB's cloud structure, Atlas. Here is the database that I've been using. I'm actually going to destroy this, and hopefully it'll go away in a reasonable period of time. The reason I want to get rid of it is because if I can, I'm going to demonstrate in the background me creating it anew, because it's really not hard to create one. It's basically just a simple little wizard, and they'll let you create one of these clusters, a small one admittedly, but a cluster for free. So MongoDB puts a fair amount of effort into having a good site, having software that you can download. They have tools like Compass, which I think I might still have running. Yeah, I have Compass. I was running this earlier. This was me viewing the remote database I was using for testing and whatnot. This is the same kind of graphical tool you'll find for a lot of people use for SQL development and whatnot, except that this is just tuned to MongoDB use. Offers you a lot of those same kinds of things of help me build queries and test queries and look at the data and manipulate the data, all the kinds of things you need to do. So they provide tools like that, and then they provide online storage if you want to just pay them to do it as a service so that you don't have to do it yourself, and they provide a free one. And then furthermore, and this is I think one of the most important things, they have a really good online university, which is I think all free. I have not encountered any of these courses that actually had a fee associated with them that I've taken. Let me show you the ones that I have taken. These are the courses that I've taken in the past. There's the MongoDB Basics. That just takes a few weeks. There is homework associated with these, and if we dive into one of these, let's actually dive into this one. This is the MongoDB for JavaScript developers. You'll see that you're actually quote-unquote graded, and you get like a value for all your homeworks and exams and whatnot, and they give you videos you have to watch, and then they test you throughout in between the videos. It's like you'll do a video, you'll answer a bunch of multiple choice questions. In some cases, the answers, they've got quizzes that are not multiple choice. You have to actually build and fix code, and then they will put out a value, and then that value has to be entered in. So you have to get the code corrected and fixed, or else you won't have the right code coming out for you to be able to type into a field. These are all available for free, and they've got a long list of these courses that they make available. So you might consider spending a few weeks taking these courses. In a given week, it's no more than a few hours per week for the viewing of the videos and the homework. But you come out of it knowing a lot more about MongoDB, and by extension, you also know a fair bit more about these various things like NeDB and TingoDB that are trying to offer you a simple embedded version of the same thing for you to use to quickly develop something. So with all that said, let's see if the cluster has shut down. Yes, it has. Okay, so this will give me a chance to rebuild the cluster you just saw a second ago. I'm going to use Amazon Web Services and North Virginia. This is one of their free clusters. You'll notice this one says free tier available. We're going to do a M0 sandbox. That's just 512 megabytes. Plenty for a side project. Now, they won't let you create multiple of these clusters. However, a single cluster could actually serve you, because you can create different collections and whatnot, would easily serve you for multiple different projects if they're all small projects, without you necessarily having to graduate to the next level of paying for the tiers if you don't, until you need that thing. And then they have prices for all the different levels and what you get. So we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We're going to change the name of the cluster to As We May Think, and then go ahead and create it. So you saw how easy it was to actually do this. Go to cloud.mongodb. That's their Atlas project, and you can get the same thing. Alrighty. I've shown you, I think, just about everything I wanted to show you. Let's talk about something other than MongoDB and MongoDB lookalikes. Let's talk about embedded storage for Node. Mongo and its relatives are not the only choices for embedded databases and storage for your Node projects. If all you need is a simple embeddable database, there are several choices. The number you see beside each one is the number of GitHub stars that particular project has. That is obviously not an ultimate measure of worth and whatnot, but it does measure somewhat interest in a particular project. So LevelDB is actually from Google. They describe it as a fast key value storage library written at Google that provides an ordered mapping from string keys to string values. And there is even another project that wraps Level to try and make it, they have versions of Level that can run in the front end, just in the browser, and something that looks like LevelDB that runs in the browser, as well as something that is a wrapper for LevelDB in the back end. So it can be a solution that works both in your browser and on the back end if you so desire by using this particular project here. So that is the most popular, at least on GitHub in terms of stars. The next one down is PouchDB, and it's another unusual choice. They describe it as a pocket-sized database, but that's kind of a weird choice. The real thing that is their hook is that if you run CouchDB in the background, so you're running CouchDB, say, in your database, as your database in the back of a house, the stuff that you do with PouchDB on the front end will then sync to the CouchDB in the background. So that's different. And if you didn't mind running CouchDB as your database, that is a possible choice. And I'm sure that accounts for it being number 2. The next one down is NeDB. And you've seen me use that quite a bit, and it has lots of stars, and it's gotten used a lot. It's just not getting the love it used to get. There's Loki.js, which I'm not going to go into today. It's another popular choice, as you can see. It's actually embedded in quite a few different projects. TaffyDB, I'll be honest, I know zip about TaffyDB. Still popular. Tingo, you saw again today. And InStore, which I'm not familiar with InStore at all. For all these that I've listed, I'm willing to bet there are at least as many that I didn't know about and didn't list. But I think the real point of this video and the previous one is make sure that you know one of these. Maybe all you need is a key value store on a regular basis. And if that's the case, consider LevelDB. That might be a good choice for you. It's something you can use in the front end and the back end. And it gives you a way to store stuff. If you want something a little more sophisticated, then I'm going to push for the NeDB or TingoDB together with MongoDB. I think that will work well. No matter what, you need something you can just reach into your pocket and say, I want to build X, where you came up with some idea and you want to get it up and running in no time. Having something that you can embed in your Node project real quick and get it going in a matter of minutes, that's tough to beat. So in the next video, and look, our cluster's already up. Thank you so much. Anyway, in our next video, we're going to come back to this one more time, but what we're going to do in the next one is we're not going to continue talking about the Mongo and Tingo and all that. What we're going to do is say, well, we've got it. It's up and running at this point. I've got it working to both do sign up and logins, let's actually put it to use. And so I build in here a simple Express server that makes use of the authentication that we've built. And then we can call that and demonstrate that we're able to use it to do all the authentication processes that a simple application would need to do. Thank you so much for listening again to As We May Think. I appreciate your viewership every single time, and if you enjoyed it, please click like and subscribe, as well as the notify bell that you see on your screen. That'll let you know whenever a new episode drops, which is normally Tuesdays and Thursdays. Again, thank you so much. Bye-bye.